Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the MR2 in this video. As I said at the end of the last MR2 video, next on the list is going to be to get the engine off of the stand here and try to mate up the transmission to the back of it, make sure that all of the clearancing that's been done already is enough, where I had to grind down areas on the block that you can see there, and I had the videos on that previously. So that's the first thing I'm going to do here. Get this thing hooked up to the engine hoist, get it lowered down, and then, I'll try and mate the transmission up to it, make sure we're good clearance-wise, and see where things end up. I did also receive the starter I had ordered online. It's a 2GR starter out of a Camry. It's used, but it's a Toyota part, guaranteed to work. So I'm going to test that. I'll weigh that versus the 3S starter just to give you an idea of what the weight difference is between the two of them. I think it's like 5 pounds, something like that from what I've seen in the past. So anyway, that is where I'm at, and I'm going to get to work on getting this thing off the engine stand. All right, one thing I just did real quick before installing, or before getting this thing off the engine stand, I installed the Frankenstein axle carrier bearing mount. I think that's what it's called. I'd ordered this with the titanium hardware. As you can see, the 3 titanium bolts. Locates pretty easily, goes on one way. There's 2 little locating pins in the lower bolt hole areas. So it's on there. Torqued this to 48 based on the bolt size, 48 Newton meters, just like I did with the transmission bolts. So that's on, and now I'm going to go ahead and get this thing hooked up to the cherry picker, get it off the stand. All right, here we go, free from the stand. So yeah, next step, I'm gonna get this thing lowered down a little bit and try and see if I can get that transmission to mount up to it. And hopefully there's no clearance issues, and then we can move on to getting clutch and flywheel and everything installed, and then get these 2 parts permanently mated to each other. All right, so here we are. I do have everything mated together, and it did fit perfectly, so no issues with clearance, so I'm good there. Put bolts in, following, Mark's instructions, and it looks like I came across something that he doesn't cover in his videos. This transmission, I believe, is the same, or it came from the 95 MR2 JDM model that the Rev3 engine came from. I think it was a package deal that the previous owner bought. And this transmission appears to be different than the 2 US ones that he considers in his videos, as far as mounting bolts go. It's almost kind of like it's a hybrid. Because he says in his video, the later model US transmissions, the E153s, should have a bolt that goes in right here. Well, you can see I don't have an ear there, which is similar to the earlier transmissions, which he says don't have that. But he does also say in his videos that the earlier transmissions will not have bolt holes on the bottom, which this transmission does. So it looks like, if you get a later model E153 from like a JDM car or something, it's going to kind of split the difference is what I'm seeing. So basically I am going to be short 1 hole in comparison to what a late model US E153 has. But being that he says the early models, which are short 3 bolts, should be fine, I'm not that worried about it. It's just this one spot right here is where it's missing a bolt in comparison to what he goes through in his videos. So yeah, so you can see everything's snugged up fine. So I have no issues, don't need to do any more clearancing or anything like that. There's, everything's, a good gap and tightened up and whatnot. So next steps are gonna be to get the transmission pulled back off now that I know where everything mounts. And I've accounted for all the bolt holes, and I can go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and replace the rear main seal. I bought a replacement kit for it. Might as well do it since it's all going to be apart. And then I'll install the clutch flywheel, and then I can get this transmission bolted back up. All right, and real quick with the transmission back off, just wanted to show you where the small bolts go, just so it's a little easier to see on the transmission. Here's the one. It looks weird going through the block because it actually goes through a threaded hole in the block. Then goes into here, and then these are the 2 on the bottom. Those 2 go here and here, and then the threaded one, or the one that looks weird, goes through this threaded hole here. So that is your 3 smaller bolting holes. And then, you know, as he said, or as he says in his videos, there's the ones here, here, and here that go through the transmission with the bigger 12mm bolts. Again, this transmission does not have a bolt hole to use this hole, so I am just short that 1 bolt hole. So, oh well, is what it is. Next on the list is going to be to pull this back cover off and replace the rear main seal. All right, so here's the kit that I got for doing the rear main seal on this engine. And as you can see, it's both the actual seal itself as well as a seal for the plate, which comes off to make, you know, changing the rear main a little easier. And I originally thought I was gonna do that. But after thinking about it, as you can see, the way this thing goes on here, you know, it seals to the back of the block as well as the oil pan, the lower oil pan there. And my concern is popping that plate off, running into issues of, you know, breaking the factory silicone seal in all those joints, which is not leaking right now and is nice and perfectly dry. I know, you know, that you can run into issues when you do break those seals. You've got some 90-degree angles and, you know, joints and whatnot there that can cause problems when trying to get them to reseal. So I'm thinking I'm actually just going to replace the round rear main at this time, leave the plate attached to the back of the block, and avoid breaking that factory silicone sealant. You know, Toyota sealant's pretty good. It's been on there. There's no leaks so far, so I think that's my best bet. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get this rear main seal popped out and replaced. All right, easy as that. Seal is out. You know, my way of doing it, so you don't try or you don't damage things, is I use that X-Acto knife you see down there and just cut a real small slit right here between the metal, or like where the metal portion of the seal ends, and then this is just soft rubber. Cut the little slit in there, get a flat blade screwdriver, and just gently pry and at like kind of an angle like this. You know, and I had, you know, a piece of towel up against the crank itself, and just slowly work it out, and came out nice and easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the new seal out of this packaging, oil it up both on the inner and the outer portion of the seal, and get it hammered in place. All right, and there we are. Just a couple minutes later, we have a rear main seal in place. I seated it ever so slightly deeper than the original one was, just because over time they tend to wear a groove in the crank, you know, a very, very slight groove. So this way it just kind of gives it a new place to bite into. And yeah, we should be good to go with this. Next step is going to be to get the flywheel installed and bolted in, and then the clutch, and then we can knock this, put this transmission back on the back of the engine. I did go ahead and order new seals for the 2 output shaft, or the 2 drive shafts today as well, so those are on order, as well as oil for the transmission. So slowly working through things. You know, I'm not sure how long we get those seals in, but I figure at least I can get the transmission mated to the back of the engine. All right, and here we are. Fidanza flywheel has been installed. I used ARP bolts. I put a little bit of blue thread locker on the threads per Mark's suggestion, Mark at Frankenstein, and then I torqued them in order, 30 foot-pounds, then 50, then 70 foot-pounds. So good to go. Everything is in place here. Next step will be to clean the green protectant off of the friction surface, as well as that decal, and then I can go ahead and get the clutch installed, or mounted up and installed, and getting that much closer to having everything buttoned together for good. All right, next day, just finished wiping this down, getting the green protectant coating off. You will need to use acetone in order to do that. Cuts right through it, so that is all set. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about torquing the flywheel, just a heads up, the way I do it is to try and keep it even. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then repeated it to do the 3 stages. So that way it just draws it down evenly. So Next step in the process is going to be to get the clutch installed. One thing I also wanted to add, I just got a package in the mail with this nice old Toyota part. This is that replacement bellows for the shift linkage on the transmission, since mine is all dry rotted and hard as a rock and split. I guess they do still have these in stock somewhere. I ordered it online and showed up within a week, so pretty nice. So I'm gonna go get the clutch parts out of the box and get moving on getting that stuff installed. All right, and as far as clutch goes, here's what I'm installing. ACT 6-pad sprung disc with the ACT heavy-duty pressure plate. So I got that stuff to get installed. Got the bolts there and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead, go over this one more time with brake clean just to make sure everything's good. Do the backside of the pressure plate, same thing. You know, it comes with a alignment tool. I'm sure you know that with the 2GR, there's really nowhere to plug that into. I mean, you could probably use it to give somewhat of an idea of where it needs to be, but yeah, it's you kind of just have to guess it because there's no actual pilot bearing that goes in the crank. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff mounted up. All right, and there we go. Installation complete. I used that centering tool, and it did do a pretty good job actually of holding things where they need to be. Looks like it's pretty centered in there, you know, if you look at it from dead on. So pretty happy with that. As far as installation goes, I torqued everything in a crisscross pattern. So, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and slowly drew it down as you're supposed to so you don't warp anything. So got it down and then I torqued it to 18 foot-pounds. That's what Mark at Frankenstein advised. So yeah, clutch is installed. So at this point, I think we're pretty much done with prepping everything on this engine to mount the transmission to it. That being said, I do have some other stuff I need to get done before I join everything together and start putting it in the car. There's a couple things I need to do to that wiring harness, a couple of little quick mods that Mark advised about. I need to get the throwout bearing installed in the transmission. I need to get that new bellows installed on the shift linkage, as well as replace the little square, and then get the transmission mounted to the engine and then get it rolled underneath. Before I do that, I do need to do a little bit finish work inside the engine bay. I still need to pull the wiring through for the drive-by wire throttle. That's gonna be a lot easier to get to that grommet and everything while there's no engine in there. So I'm gonna get that done. And then I think I just wanna do one more quick wipe down, like the hinges, maybe a little bit more touch-up stuff up there real quick. Since it's going to be hard to get to when there's an engine in there, whereas right now I can just stand in there and do the touch-up work as necessary. So that being said, I think I'm going to call it a video right now. Got a decent amount accomplished in this one. So in theory, next one is going to be all the finishing up of the prep to get this engine put in this car. So pretty happy coming along, and I should meet my goal of having it at least mounted on the 2 side mounts by New Year's. That is my goal. So yeah, so if you like what you're seeing, if you want to follow along, please like, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Hope you're learning something. You know, hope you're finding it at least, you know, somewhat engaging. I know I'm not the best speaker or presenter, but I figure at least I'm getting that information out there. So that being said, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you for watching and have a great day.